Hey guys, Reese here. Thanks so much for stopping by to watch this video today. And today's a very special day because I get to film a video that's been a long time in the making. How I became a millionaire by the age of 30 through real estate investing. Now I set this goal to become a millionaire by the age of 25 when I was 18, my freshman year of college. And unfortunately, I set that goal, but I did not put a plan into action until many years later. So 25 was out of the picture. But at the age of 24, after a few failed get-rich-quick schemes or online businesses, I set a real plan into action, and 6 short years later, at the age of 30, I became a millionaire. And now at 31 years old, I'm quickly approaching the $2 million net worth mark, which will of course make me a multimillionaire. In this video, I'm going to review my real estate investments that led to the $1 million net worth in 6 years by the age of 30, as well as some general tips that I think will be helpful for you all on your journey as well. Now, by the end of the video, I'm also going to discuss a few pitfalls I encountered on the way, as well as some areas that are still causing me issues today and slowed me down significantly on my path to becoming a millionaire. Now, a few years ago, I started this YouTube channel primarily to document my journey to becoming a millionaire. However, part of that plan was to gain some level of notoriety on YouTube, some level of social media influence, and be able to generate what I thought at the time would be some quicker money, that digital income. However, I ended up taking a break from YouTube a couple years ago because as I put out more and more content, I felt that the content being put out was more regurgitated information with no real value to my subscribers. And the reason I was posting was more and more so to try and generate money by growing a YouTube channel and less so of providing real value to my subscribers. And I had a very short-term focus when it came to acquiring wealth. And that brings me to my number one point, which is I shifted my focus from short-term wealth accumulation to a very long-term vision. A quote at the time that really resonated with me and really embodied this mental shift I took when it came to investing in wealth creation was actually from Grant Cardone, and he said something along the lines of, "I'd rather get rich for sure than get rich quick." Now, this shift in mindset is what eventually led me to start researching real estate and gave me the desire to start pursuing the accumulation of physical assets such as real estate that would provide long-term wealth and less so on what I perceived to be short-term wins at the time, like making YouTube videos or trying to do drop shipping or day trading stocks, things that I perceived as more of a short-term or a quick win. Now, with this new shift in mindset, in 2018, I decided it was time to take that leap and buy my first real estate investment. My first real estate investment was a C-class duplex that I owner-occupied. That means I lived in one side, and I lived in that investment for 1 year. Now, I bought that duplex for $170,000, and I put 5% down. And so after title fees and a little bit of other, seller credit, things like that, my out-of-pocket for this first investment was $8,000. Now, full transparency, I own almost every investment with a partner. Most of my properties are 50-50 ownership with one partner, and one of them I own 5% of, and it's multiple partners, right? That's a commercial deal. So all the numbers I tell you today, I pretty much own half of, and we'll break that out later in the video. Now, this first investment required very minimal renovation. I moved into the one side, like I said, and I removed the carpeting, we did new vinyl plank flooring, painted the unit, and some other minor cosmetic improvements. Something very easy and entry level, something that did improve the rents a little bit, but did not take too much effort or capital to do so. Now, over the years, I eventually did move out, and myself and my partner did put money into the property, about $60,000 or so, to renovate the entire property, improve the rents so the property actually cash flowed, and therefore also increased the value. So today, that property is worth about $350,000 with a loan balance of $140,000, which leaves about $210,000 in equity. Keep in mind that $210,000 does include the fact that we put money into it, about $60,000, right? So I didn't make a profit of $210,000, but that's the equity remaining in the deal right now. Now, that property was generally pretty nice, which is why it took about 6 years of market appreciation, as well as that, light renovation of about $60,000 to force the value and create that equity. But that brings me to my second point or tip for you all on your journey to create wealth for yourself. And that next tip is to focus on an investment where you can force value or force appreciation. And for me, that means I turned my focus from buying a turnkey asset like my first property to buying what I consider to be value add real estate. While that first investment was perfectly fine and a great place to start, it took years for that property to go up in value. It took probably 4 years until that property broke even on cash flow or even started to make money on the monthly income. And that only ever happened once we put some capital in to increase the rents. However, once we renovated it, it unlocked equity and it also increased the rents, which turned the property into a cash flowing asset. In 2019, I bought my second real estate investment 50-50 with a partner. This property was my first value add deal. It was a campus duplex that we ended up renovating and adding significant value to. I moved into this property again using an owner-occupant loan and lived in the property for a year as it was renovated. This once again allowed me to only put 5% down on the property. We purchased the property for about $291,000, and after putting 5% down and some title fees, the out-of-pocket was about $20,000. Now this was a pretty big value-add deal where we ended up adding bedrooms to the third floor. We ended up cosmetically renovating both units, painting new floors, some kitchen and bathroom upgrades, etc. And we did do a majority of the work ourselves, which means it only cost us about $50,000 to do so. This means overall we were about $70,000 into the deal, and that ended up forcing the value to about $600,000. Now we were able to do a cash out refinance on this property because this was during a lower interest time period, resulting in a new loan of about $304,000, giving us equity of about $296,000. Now this value add renovation was very profitable. One, it resulted in a lot of equity added, but it also is our most profitable cash flowing deal, bringing in about $5,400 a month on only a $304,000 loan or so. That means our principal, interest, taxes, insurance are still to this day under $2,000, resulting in a large amount of positive cash flow on this deal. This was a big win for us, myself and my business partner, and it brings me to my third step or tip I can provide you guys when working to accumulate your, $1 million net worth or whatever your financial goal is, and that is to not be afraid to get your hands dirty while also still relying on the experience of others. Over the years of buying these value-add deals, I never had a general contractor. We started off by doing a lot of the work ourselves and learning from those more experienced than us. For example, hiring plumbers or hiring electricians or HVAC contractors who knew their trades very well, could do the work to a safe and quality standard while I could learn from it. And yet the easier items like painting and flooring and carpentry work, I could do myself and save a lot of money. Doing so allowed me to save money quicker for future investments, but also allowed me to accumulate the experience over a few years to start my own GC company later and be able to create detailed budgets, do these value-add renovations without going over budget. And in the future, I'm hoping to kind of parlay this into doing new construction, ground-up development. And all of that is because I wasn't afraid to get my hands dirty and learn as I went. Today, I run a home inspection company, and unfortunately, every single day, I see new real estate investors getting absolutely waxed by their contractors that they trust as out-of-state investors or newbies because they really have no experience in what things should cost. They've never done any of the work themselves, and so they don't know how much effort is involved, and therefore they just get taken advantage of. And more likely than not, they end up losing their money and never buying real estate again. And this is sad, but also completely preventable by starting small and getting your hands dirty yourself by doing a lot of research, but also learning from experience and doing some of the work yourself if you're able to. Now, the next two properties were once again value-add duplexes, one of which I actually filmed a YouTube video about, which I will go ahead and link it up somewhere on this video. And you guys should check that out. That was a few years ago. I included a lot of detail about that project and how I found the deal and what it was worth before, after, how much it cost to renovate. A very good video, so I'll link that for you guys to watch later. Now, property 3, I bought in 2020, and this came after living a full year in that campus duplex while renovating it, saving my money. This was a 6-bedroom duplex that I lived in with 5 roommates, right? So I lived well below my means for a year, saved up more money, and bought this next property. I bought this next duplex with the same partner, paid about $160,000 for it, put about $50,000 into renovating both sides. This was a full renovation. I did a lot of the work myself with my partner at the time. And I also moved into this one. So all those numbers that we've been talking about, the 5% down loans, this all applied on the third one as well. Now that duplex today is worth about $400,000, maybe even a little bit more. And the loan on this property after a cash out refinance is $192,000. So that means I got money out of the deal and I still have left in the deal about $207,000. And property 4 is that duplex I was just talking about. I bought that in 2021 for about $227,000. And I don't exactly remember how much money we put into it or the full scope of that, but it was a full rehab. And you can go watch my other YouTube video digging into the details on that one. Today, that property is worth about $425,000 with a loan of about $280,000, leaving about $145,000 of equity in it. Now, all of these first 4 properties, I was able to take advantage of something called a cash out refinance. All of this money we put in, we increased the value of these properties, and then we got a new loan of a higher value to pay off the old loan and get some money back out of. This was a great strategy and still is okay today, but it was really good back then because of the low interest rate environment. A lot of my loans on these first 4 properties are 2.5% to 5%. Pretty low compared to today's rates. This also allowed me to use that money that we took out to then buy future deals. So if you're keeping track, these first 4 properties have an estimated value today of $1.78 million with a debt balance of $917,000-ish, leaving about $870,000 of equity. Now I own all of these 50-50 with partners, leaving my equity about $435,000. Now my 4th step to achieving my $1 million net worth, and a great goal for you all as well, is to start to scale bigger. This doesn't mean stop buying the smaller properties. I'm still to this day buying 2-unit, 3-unit, 4-unit buildings. However, when you're able to and when the opportunity arises, start to buy bigger deals. And so that's what I did on my next 2 properties. I bought a 6-unit apartment building, and then I bought quite a large commercial building that's being used as a daycare center. Now the 6-unit was a very unique deal that when myself and my partner bought it, it was 6 units, but the 6th unit was being used as a laundry/storage room. It had no kitchen, no bathrooms, but it was the same size and layout as all the other units, so it could have been a 6th unit, but it was being marketed as 5. And so we bought that property for a great deal, about $620,000, and then proceeded to turn that laundry room and storage room into a 6th unit. Now, because we turned that into a 6th unit, we added laundry into every unit, and then we also added central air to every unit. This increased the value, so today the property is worth about $900,000 with a loan of only $530,000. Now on this property, we also utilized something that in Ohio is called a state tax credit, and we got 10% of the invested capital back as a state tax credit, which we sold to a company to use. I didn't need that credit. And therefore we got about $65,000 back to us in cash from that state tax credit. Now, the next building is a daycare center, and I only own 5% of this building, so it's really not worth talking about too much. But the reason why I bought this building is because it offered me a great opportunity to partner with some more experienced investors that I could learn from, hopefully build a relationship with, and earn a position to buy more deals with them, have a higher percent ownership, etc. Now this deal, it was a very good deal. So there's about $700,000 of equity on this deal, which is because we bought the property with a lease ending or vacant. So the property was worth very little. And we put a very, market price paying tenant on a 10-year lease, paid 6 figures in leasing fees, and therefore that forced the value of that commercial space. This was something I was not really familiar with, but it was such a small amount of money invested for me, owning only 5%, that I felt it was worth a risk to buy into this partnership and really use it as a learning experience. I didn't really have to make money, but I'm happy I did because 5% of $700,000 is about $35,000 of equity for me. That brings me to my fifth tip and step for you all on building your net worth or your financial freedom is to build meaningful partnerships that provide value to not only yourself, but also your partners. As I've stated, I own almost every property with a partner, most of them 50-50, the daycare center only 5%, and one property I own by myself. And this has been good and bad in ways. It's accelerated the growth of my net worth, and it's decelerated the growth of my net worth, just based on what factors you look at. On the one hand, I own half of every deal, so that's clearly slowed down the growth of my net worth. If I owned 100% of every deal, I'd have a lot more money today. However, 80% of these deals I would not have had access to without these partners. Most of my partnerships, the partner brings the deal, and therefore I had to partner with them to get access to that deal. A good partnership can be very valuable, while of course a bad partnership can really be a nightmare. So you have to be careful here. Never just partner somebody because you want to. Don't buy real estate with your best friend just because you want to. This is usually a waste of time, as you both bring the same value and you both bring the same issues or the same knowledge set as well. For me, for example, my partners usually find the deal and I usually will execute the business plan. I will manage the property, I will GC the construction, the renovation, whatever, and therefore I can focus on what I'm good at while they can focus on what they're good at. Now, depending on the deal structure, we might just do a 50-50 split. I might get paid to do some aspect of my job. My partner might get paid to do some aspect, but that really depends on the deal. However, I really would never partner with somebody just to partner with somebody, right? My first 2 or 3 deals, I partnered with somebody who was my friend at the time, still is a very good friend of mine. There was no real reason to partner with them. However, they ended up developing their career later on and they became a deal finder. And so they've continued to bring me deals and we've partnered in the future. But at the time, it didn't make a ton of sense to partner with them. Now today, that partner is what I would consider to be a passive partner. And so I collect a management fee, a GC fee, etc., because after they find the deal, I never hear from them again, and it's a very one-sided partnership where I do all the work and therefore I'm paid for that. And that relationship works out very well for us, and partnerships can be a great hack or a great strategy for you all to accelerate your wealth creation. If you have very little money, you can partner with somebody who has money, but you might need to find the deal to provide that value to that partnership. Over the next couple years, I proceeded with this strategy. I bought more duplexes, and just recently I bought a 4-unit, eventually accumulating over $6 million of real estate. Out of this $6 million, now there's a lot of numbers coming up, so I'm just gonna read off my computer screen here, but out of that $6 million of real estate held, I own about $2.783 million of it. That's based on my 50-50 partnerships, my 5% ownership, things like that. On that $6 million, there's debt of $3.736 million. Of which my percentage is $1.784 million. And therefore, my equity percentage is just under $1 million at $999,000 and some change. Now, throughout the years of buying these properties, we did those cash out refinances I talked about. I started a home inspection company that I ended up hiring inspectors, and that's a growing company now, as well as a radon mitigation company, a general contracting company. And none of these are major companies, but they all bring in income. And that has brought me to a current cash balance of $353,000 and some change, of which $285,000 belongs to me, once again due to those partnerships, bring my net worth to just over $1.3 million today. Now, if you want to get technical with it, my home inspection company is currently valued at about $750,000. I'm working on selling a portion of it now. So technically, I might be considered being worth over $2 million, but I really don't consider the value of companies, as that's always changing. It's not liquid, it's even less liquid than real estate. And so we'll leave that out of it for now. And I want to leave you with a final thought and also my 6th and final point that I'll discuss in a second. But you might be thinking while watching this video, I was buying real estate from 2018, 1920, really good years to be buying real estate. And I still buy real estate today, lots of it. I'm accelerating my purchases. But you might be thinking, you know, I got pretty lucky. And I did get lucky with my timing, and I kind of thought people who were my mentors and were buying in 2012, 13, 14 were much luckier than me. It always seems like it would have been better to buy real estate, you know, 5 years beforehand, right? However, I really didn't get lucky, and you don't need luck to succeed in real estate. For the past 7 years, I've worked 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, very little vacations, usually a couple a year, you know, very little time off. And you certainly don't have to do this, but it just goes to show that you can really achieve anything as long as you work hard enough and smart enough at it. Everything is possible with the right long-term mindset. I know many people at my office here today, real estate agents, who made $1 million much quicker than I did. I'm actually did mine pretty slow compared to a lot of other people at this office. And I also know people that took much longer. And it might take you much longer, you might make it much quicker, but you really shouldn't compare yourself to others. You should just maintain that long-term mindset and improve every single day what you're doing. And that brings me to my sixth step, or my sixth tip for you all, is to try and get rid of, if you have it, the victim mentality or the victim mindset. I see this so often, and I think it's one of the most detrimental things you can have when trying to achieve any level of success in any field. And one of the best books I read that really helped shift my mentality from this victim mindset is a book called Extreme Ownership: How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win. And this was such a great book, probably still to this day one of my favorite books, and a book that really set my mentality in the right direction and allowed me to achieve this level of net worth at what I consider to be a relatively young age. The general premise of the book is essentially that you are responsible for everything. And therefore, if everything is your fault, you can do something about it to fix it. If you are late to work, it's not because there was traffic, it's because you didn't leave early enough. If you're broke, it's not because your job doesn't pay you enough, it's because you don't have a high enough skill set. Things like that. You are taking responsibility for the issues, you know, the losses and the wins in your life. I hope this video provided a little bit of entertainment for you all, hopefully a little bit of motivation, and ideally some educational aspect for you all as well. If you want to see the project or one of the projects I'm working on right now, I've got a playlist of a video series I'm doing right now on a full gut renovation duplex. You can click somewhere on this screen for that playlist. Go ahead and check that out. Really cool project, down to the studs duplex renovation, and should add a lot of equity to my net worth. I'd also encourage you all to subscribe to the channel. I'm going to start to put out more YouTube videos again, hopefully providing more value than I was in the past, and possibly providing insight into my journey to the next financial stage, $5 or $10 million. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video.